regarder un show avec Z Frank.
I've missed you, it's been a while, right? I want to talk to you about an amazing discovery. A once-in-a-lifetime discovery that explains why some things have greater mass than others. I'm sure you've heard of it by now. The spiral hot dog. The vast mystery of the inside of a hot dog, that pink and uniform mush exposed to the world by a collision of mashed meat with the technology of a knife and skewer, held to flame to produce fluctuations of caramelized meat product seared goodness alternating with stewy goo. This discovery explains why I, over the July 4th holiday, have added more mass than the poor souls who have yet to encounter this marvel of nature. In other news, the Higgs boson has been discovered, not quite the spiral hot dog, but it does promise to uphold the standard model of physics as well as explain why dark matter exists. On the other hand, it didn't last long enough to put mustard on it, so there's pros and cons. There's arguments fermion and against, jokes for nerds. Here's my rough and terrible understanding of what happened. About 45 years ago, scientists had a bunch of pretty equations that had all kinds of symmetry and simplicity, but they couldn't totally account for how unsymmetrical and weird our universe is, specifically why some fundamental particles had different masses than others. So they had this idea that there was this vast and infinite field all around us called the Higgs field. Now imagine yourself naked in a bathtub full of hot dogs. That has nothing to do with it, but I'm glad we got to share that experience. Weird, right? You can imagine the Higgs field as stuff, but that's not quite right. It's more like potential for stuff, but it's easier to imagine that there's stuff all around us. As particles pass through the Higgs field, they interact with the field, and as a result gain mass. Some particles barely interact with the Higgs field, like a skier interacts with snow by skiing on top of it. Those particles barely have any mass. Other particles interact a lot more with the field, like sinking into the snow. They have a lot more mass and they move a lot slower. The point is that mass is something that happens to or is given to these particles rather than being an intrinsic property of the particles themselves. So this idea of the Higgs field sort of explained why things are all sorts of different shapes and sizes. The problem was they couldn't prove any of this. It was the 60s and everyone had bad hair. In order to prove it, they'd have to see a fundamental particle generated by the Higgs field, sort of like a momentary power-up in the video game universe. They called this fundamental particle the Higgs boson, Higgs for Peter Higgs, and the unfortunate word boson for the Indian physicist Satyendra Nath Bose. To witness this particle, which they didn't really know existed, they built a $4.7 billion, 16.8 mile long tube which smashes protons together at almost the speed of light. Smashy smashy! The energy created from this sort of a collision is so massive that it kind of upsets the fabric of the universe itself, and they're able to see all sorts of weird particles emerge and quickly disappear by making simulated models like this one. The hope was that doing this at even higher energies would mess with the Higgs field enough for it to freak out a little bit and produce a Higgs boson. And it looks like that's exactly what happened. If it's true, it's pretty amazing, like really amazing, and it'll lead to all sorts of insights about the nature of the hot dog and the rest of the universe. But to me, it's also a celebration of difference, of why we're so wonderfully odd and broken and unique in all sorts of shapes and sizes and ears and feet and tummies. And it's also a celebration of belief and perseverance. I think Gerald Guralnick, the co-discoverer of the Higgs mechanism, says it best.
It shows, certainly to us, the value of just imagining and just asking, just trying to follow the leads that you get from simple ideas, that it's worthwhile doing this and seeing where you come out.
Bill Wadman has picked his favorites from the Scream mission. Runners-up, Irma. He says, just kept coming back to this shot in the field. The light is so soft along with the oncoming storm behind her. Haunting. And runner-up Paranoid K. Bill says he took a fairly normal screaming photo and made it meta. Inventive. But the winner is Eric Beeson. Bill says screaming kid shots are a dime a dozen, but this one tells a story that would do Cindy Sherman proud. Eric, congrats, and I'll email you to tell you how to get that poster. And now the wonderful Lee Hall will animate one of your dreams.
I had this dream where people were diseased. They were deformed, and if they fell over or hurt themselves, they would bleed profusely. The person who was responsible was this Asian lady who looked down on everyone from a huge monitor on the side of a building. She decided to bring the city to ruin, and when I looked up, all of the buildings started to crumble upwards. Then I woke up.
It's the boy